discussing the issues and celebrating the successes of the African American community. This is Another View.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Hamlee. Now, do you know what this is? It's the official form of the 2010 census, and it's coming to your mailbox very soon. Now, for many people, it's no big deal. They'll fill it out, send it in, and move on. But there are many who think the census is just another way for Big Brother to peek into their personal lives, and they want nothing to do with it. Joining us to tell us why it's critical that we participate in the census is Della Stokes, Assistant Manager of Quality Assurance for the Census Bureau, and Patricia Knight, Partnership Specialist, also with the census. Welcome to the program, ladies.
Well, thank
and
you.
I will apologize from the beginning because I have a cold, so I'm hoping I'm not sounding too stuffy. But back in December, people like Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Ben Jealous with the NAACP, the head of the National Black Newspapers Publishing Association, all got together because they were very concerned that the African American population be counted correctly this time. There was an issue in 2000. Della.
We want to make sure that there is not underrepresentation. It is very important for every individual to be counted in the United States. That's every individual, particularly the African American community.
Why do you think that we have a problem in terms of being undercounted?
I think typically we feel that it's invasive, that there's too much information, the information may be used against us, but I will tell you that Title 13 says that all personal identifiable information is confidential, and it will actually use the information looking for demographics versus individual information.
So in other words, they can't take the information that you fill out on the census form and use it someplace else. And the president's office can't call, the IRS can't call. Can anyone else get this information but the census?
No, as Della stated, under the Title 13 of the U.S. Code, we have taken an oath, and this is an oath for life, even after we leave the Census Bureau, that we cannot share anyone's personal identifiable information. If we were to do that and reveal someone's information, we can be fined $250,000 and or imprisoned for 5 years. And that's an oath that we take very seriously in the Bureau.
What are some of the questions that are on the form that make people so crazy?
Well, the questions are very easy. For the first time in census history, there's a short form. Every household will receive a short form. In previous census times or decennial census times, some households received a long form while others received a short form. Every household will receive the short form. The questions that are on the short form: how many people live in your house as of April 1st of 2010? Do you rent or own your home? We ask for your telephone number. We ask for name, date of birth, age, race, and ethnic origin. So those are some of the questions that are asked on the form. It's nothing very invasive at all. We don't ask for social security number. We don't ask for financial information. We don't ask if you're documented or undocumented. This is just for a head count.
And speaking of documented or undocumented, if you are an illegal, if you're in the country illegally, are you, one, expected to fill out the census, and two, will that count against you, Della?
It will not count against you, and yes, you are expected to be counted.
Okay, so we're actually counting every person who physically lives in the United States, is that right?
That is correct. Every individual who is in the United States on April 1st, 2010.
Okay, and why do we do the census?
Well, it's mandated in our Constitution that every 10 years we count everyone living in the United States. The first census was taken in 1790, and every 10 years ending in a 0, we've had a census. The 2010 census will be our 23rd census since 1790.
And if we don't get the correct count, well, first of all, let's talk about what the numbers do for us. One, it helps us with our congressional representation.
That is correct. And also with allocating over $400 billion annually.
And building allocations for what types of programs?
For our human program.
Go ahead.
For human services programs, hospitals, schools, number of programs that will be utilized by everybody in the United States.
And if your population in your particular area is undercounted, then that means you don't get as much money. Is that right?
That's correct.
Absolutely.
Yes, less monies are coming into the community, and we know that for various services that are in place now, Title I programs in schools, various human or social services programs, without appropriate funding, they can't run.
And buildings, money to build schools, money to run Head Start programs, things of that sort are also included. Now, one issue that is particular, unfortunately, to our community is the number of African American males who are incarcerated. How are they counted?
Well, they're counted in an operation called group quarters enumeration. And what group quarters enumeration is that we work with correctional facilities, we work with hospitals, nursing homes, any type of group quarters type of living situation, and we count people who live in groups. And so people who are incarcerated will be counted during that operation, which will begin in March.
But if you're incarcerated in say Nevada, but you live in Virginia, are you counted for Virginia?
No, you're counted where you sleep and where you live. So if they're living in Nevada, that's where they'll be counted.
And so more money than would go to Nevada, for example. I mean, we're just making up a state here.
Right,
but the point being that you're not counted in your home state.
No, you're not. Because that person that's living away from home, such as college students who live in college dormitories, they may be away in California or away, in Washington State. They're counted there because they use roads and transportation there. They use hospital services if they get sick.
I see.
So they're using those services in those areas, and so they need to be counted where they're receiving those services from.
Okay. Now, Della, we have 3 census offices in the Hampton Roads area. Is that correct? Okay. Where are they located and who are they serving in general?
Chesapeake office is located on Military Highway in Chesapeake, and we cover a broad area. It's Chesapeake, Portsmouth, Norfolk, Dinwiddie County, Lunenburg, Mecklenburg.
So you go all the way out to Route 8 to Interstate 85?
Absolutely, all the way out nearly midway of the state. And also the Virginia Beach office covers Virginia Beach, covers Norfolk, and covers the Eastern Shore. And then there is the Newport News area, and they cover all the way up to Accomack County.
Okay, so our whole area is included within those 3 regional, I guess you would say, offices. What goes on in those offices?
In the offices, there's quite a bit of activity. There are a number of operations that are taking place at any given time. As Patricia said, there's group quarters validation that's going on right now, and then we'll be updating a lot of the addresses that we had collected in the spring of 2009, and all of these operations are concurrent. Some of them work at the same time, so we have quite a bit of activity, and right now recruiting is our #1 operation. In order to hire the numbers of people that we will need later on this year, we need to recruit them now.
Okay, and tell me some of the jobs that they will be doing.
We have positions in the office of clerk, we have office operations supervisors, and out in the field we have enumerators or census takers, and then there are crew leaders, there are FOSSes, which are the field supervisors, field operations supervisors. So there are quite a number of positions that are available.
And Patricia, what kind of experience do you need if you want to work for the census?
Well, Della would probably, she would probably.
Della would know better? Okay.
Yes.
Della?
Well, no experience is necessary. It's on-the-job training for every position that we have in the census.
Okay. Now, but these are temporary jobs, is that correct?
All temporary positions, but they are full to part-time. There are 20 hours to 40 hours per week.
Okay. Now, and I think we talked about this a little bit in background. If someone is unemployed and they come on with the census for this temporary job, does that affect their unemployment benefits?
Yes, it would affect their unemployment benefits, but they would be able to go back to those benefits after this job is over.
And is there any opportunity for someone to then become full-time if you come in through these types of positions?
Unfortunately, these jobs will cease at the end of 2010.
Okay.
They're all temporary positions.
Okay. Now, you work with partnerships.
Correct.
Exactly what does that mean, and how is that going to help, particularly the African American community, since that's what our show is about,
okay.
but people in general in terms of making sure that the word gets out?
Okay. Well, the partnership program, what we do, we work with state and local government, community and faith-based organizations, media, businesses, school systems, in order to help us in encouraging people to fill out their census forms. So part of my job, part of those cities and counties that Della talked about, that the Virginia Beach office and the Chesapeake office covers, is all of my territory. I cover 21 cities and counties.
You're kind of busy, huh?
Yes, I am. But I'm going to those various places, making those connections with those community leaders and organizations to help us, because they have the relationship with people in the community. So they can encourage their constituents, their clients, their customers to fill out their census forms.
Now, the census form will come in March?
Yes.
Is that correct?
That is
correct.
correct.
So I get my form, I fill it out, I mail it in, I'm done, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so where do these field census workers come in?
We estimate approximately 1/3 of Americans may not turn their census forms in, their questionnaires, and so we are going to go door to door to gather that data.
Now, and I think that may be part of the reason where the paranoia comes in. Would you agree?
Yes.
When someone comes to the door.
Right. But,
so,
yeah, but
what should they expect?
Well, we want people to, like you said, it's a short form. It's 10 questions. It takes approximately 10 minutes to fill out. Fill it out, mail it back to us. That would eliminate someone coming and knocking on their door to obtain or help them fill out their census forms. We have estimated that for every 1% increase in the mailback response rate is a savings to the government between $85 to $90 million. And that's because we have to hire people, we have to recruit people, we have to train them to go out door to door. And although we know in our economy right now, people need jobs, but that's a huge savings for just 1% of increase of the mailback response rate. So we want people to fill out their forms. And if they have fears about people knocking on their doors because of, various things, people may have issues with local law enforcement. They may think if they share their information with us, especially if they live in a housing authority or community, that we're going to let their housing manager know, do you know they have
X amount of people
living in their households. So that's a fear that we want to dispel in the community, that we share their information and that their information is safe with us. They can fill out their forms, mail it back to us, and they don't have to worry about people knocking on their doors.
But if someone comes to your door, how do I know it's a census worker and it's not someone who may want to do me harm? Is there an identification?
Yes, it is. Every census worker will have a census badge with their name on it, and they will also present the homeowner or the occupant with the Title 13 information as well.
And when would that phase of collecting information start?
That should start on or about March the 5th.
Okay, so you're going to mail out the forms in March, but when would the people actually start going out into the field?
That should start about April 5th.
Around April 5th, okay? Is that around the time? So you basically give people a month to mail these back in.
Yes, yes.
Okay, but it seems like a short amount of time, considering that you are judging or basing your information based on who lived in the house on April 1st. Is that right?
Right. Yes. Well, I believe that what will happen probably April 5th for those who have not filled out their forms, because every census form that goes to households will be barcoded with just the address information. The people living in that house will tell us the names of those people who live in that household. So when they mail those forms back to us, they will be scanned, and we'll know which households have not responded to the survey. So we'll send out a couple of reminders. We may send out a couple other surveys. Hey, by the way, just in case you lost the first one, here's another one. Kind of send them a couple of reminders. But after that, probably between May and July of during the summer is when we'll start sending those census enumerators or census takers door to door to help people fill out their information. Because by December 31st of 2010 is when we have to have that information on the president's desk for the apportionment of those congressional seats. And then by March of 2011 is when we have to have that information back to the states for redistricting purposes, because census data is used for legislative redistricting.
Exactly. And that's why it's also very, very critical
Yes.
that everybody participate.
Yes.
You know, I'm going back again. You have people who just don't trust the government.
Right.
And I'm looking at you particularly because your job is that outreach.
Right.
You know, there's got to be something else that you're saying to them, or what else can all of us who don't mind doing the census say to people to really put their mind at ease?
Well, what we're doing with a lot of our partner organizations, we have what we call a complete count committee. And what the Complete Count Committee is tasked with doing is encouraging people in their communities. They're putting on events, they're putting on forums, various other events in the community to heighten awareness for one thing, and then to encourage people to fill out their census forms.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, on the form it has space for 6 people within the household?
It has really room for 12 people.
For 12 people?
Yes.
Altogether. If you have more than that, do you attach a piece of paper?
Right, yes. That's
Do you
exactly,
really?
yes. You can attach an additional sheet to the form, yes.
Okay, all right. And if people are interested in becoming a census worker and taking on this temporary work, what do they need to do, Della?
They can call their local census office. It's a 1-800 number. It's They can call their local census office.
Okay.
It's an 866 number.
Okay.
866-861-2010.
Okay.
That's
okay.
correct.
And they can also go to the website also and figure out. Now, do they have to have a card? Do they have to, what do they need in order to be considered?
They will need 2 forms of ID, and they'll be testing. Once they pass the test, that is it. If they have an automobile, that's great. If not, they do not have to have transportation because they will work within their neighborhoods.
And what's the test about?
The test is approximately 28 questions, and it has questions for maps, being able to read maps and knowing streets and street signs and that type of thing. And it's fairly easy.
And I would assume you guys would encourage kind of community leaders and so forth to maybe take this on because there's a trust factor there.
Yes, I mean, we're partnering with churches. You know, ministers are a strong voice in their community. So, you know, we're asking them to put inserts in their bulletins on Sundays. You know, those who have screens that they run messages and various things, to put a census message on their screens to let people know that it's coming, because it's important for all of our communities.
One of the I believe it's the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation just did a study also that said that children are often undercounted.
Yes.
Why is that?
Parents just feel like, you know, maybe they just don't need to count their children, but they really do need to count their children in their households because of Title I programs in schools, Head Start programs, free lunch programs. For schools to even know they need to build another school or hire new teachers or various other things that school systems need. So for some reason, parents just, you know, they may count the adults in the household, but they leave out the children.
And if you have a child on April 1st,
yes,
you include that child?
If they are living in that household. And even,
well, at that point, they may be still living in the
hospital, right? But even parents who are foster parents, they need to add that child in their household.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Okay. So any person who physically lives, they don't have to be related to you.
No, they do not. No.
They just need to live within that dwelling.
Yes.
Itself.
Yes.
Okay, we've got a little less than a minute. I'm going to give each of you an opportunity to say something to encourage people to participate. Della, you start.
Just like to tell everybody, be counted. It is important. It is your money, it's your state, it's your government, and it's just that important.
Okay.
Get out there and be counted.
Patricia?
Well, the 2010 census is a portrait of our future and a portrait of America. And just like your family portraits, you don't want anyone left out of the picture. Don't be left out of the picture. Be counted.
Well, ladies, I appreciate you being here today, and I'm sure that we'll be talking about the census as we go along on Another View to remind folks that this is something that's really, really important. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate it very much. And for more information on how you can become a census worker, please visit their website at www.2010censusjobs.gov or call 1-866-861-2010. And when we come back, we'll tell you about Hampton Road's best kept secret. But first, a look at what's happening in our area. Welcome back. Terry Riddick and his brothers grew up in neighborhoods where doing something positive was not the norm. In spite of their surroundings, they were determined to make a difference. When their cousin was killed in a gunfight, they knew it had to happen sooner rather than later. Tonight, Lisa Godley shows us how they are changing the world, one teen at a time, with the region's best kept secret.
It looks simple enough, giving a child a free haircut, but it's the conversations that take place while the child is in the barber's chair that makes the real difference.
Andre.
For the length of the haircut, Terry Riddick and others who make up the best kept secret have a captive audience, but they don't start out advising their clients to avoid gangs and stay in school. Terry says they start out just listening, and sometimes they hear quite a lot.
One time, a young man, he had a red do-rag or something in his pocket, a member of a gang, and I asked him, questions about, what drew you to joining a gang or being interested in being in a gang? And he was like, "There's nothing for me to do. A lot of the kids don't have nothing to do," or he'll say, "Well, my parents don't care anyway." Or my mother, she's never home. My dad's locked up, he's in jail. So that's one of the stories that really, touched me and stuck with me.
Terry says regardless of what they hear, he and his brothers never degrade the person, but instead share their own story of growing up but pressing on just the same.
Just tell them, man, you got to keep your head up and you got to stay in school. That's the only way you're going to overcome, man. You got to be strong. And you got to believe in God, because that's the only way we're surviving this, is walking with Him.
When Terry, Wilson, and Randy first started out, their goal was to feed the community and entertain. But so many people were doing the same thing that they needed something to separate them from the pack, and the free haircuts have pulled them way out in front.
When we go to the community talking about free haircuts, everybody comes running.
Terry says it's nothing for them to cut 80 to 100 heads in a single session.
Sometimes we'll set the time at 5 hours, but of course we're going to go over 5 hours because we want to make sure we get everybody that comes to the door, and we don't turn anybody back. So we never left the community without somebody not getting a haircut.
When 16-year-old Andre Turney saw how the group was changing lives, he knew he wanted to be a part of it.
What they do and how they want to help the youth and how they want to make the society safer for the young kids to grow up into it. I'm like, I want to do that because I want to feel like I have a part in making somebody else's life better than what mine is, and so their children and generations can grow up into a safe society and not have to worry about killings and robbings.
When they're not cutting hair, the brothers are still working to make things better for their community.
Me and my brothers, we went around and we gave out free football cleats. Because football season was coming up. A lot of kids can't afford football cleats. Because I know my football cleats cost over $100-some when I was playing football. So I know the kids, parents, they can't afford it, especially single mothers, they can't afford that stuff. So that's what we did. We gave away like almost 100 pair of football cleats.
Members of the Best Kept Secret have taken 10 guns off the street and helped former gang members learn trades through the Job Corps. Their dream is to take their mission nationwide.
That's why we're linked with so many different organizations, because it's important. We can't do it by ourselves. So whatever we can't do, there's other organizations out there that can do it. And we just make the phone call and they're there just like that. And we want to be able to get out to the prisons and the jails, and we want to be able to actually meet them at the gate and say, look, you can't go down that path anymore. It's time for you to do something different. Come on, walk with us. We'll show you the right way.
And there's no doubting that. For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
And to find out more about the Best Kept Secret, visit www.bks.imspace.com. Monday is the celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, and WHRO is airing a special documentary called Rising Up, featuring compelling personal stories of the civil rights movement in Virginia. Tune in for Rising Up on WHRO-TV Monday night at 9. And we thank you for joining us this evening. Next week, our editorial roundtable. We'll see you next time for Another View.